On a scorching summer day, 4-year-old Tyre waits patiently for her father to come home. An elderly woman reassures her that he should return soon, and Tyre believes her. But 10 nights pass without him. Long absences are normal for Tyre. Her father claims to be a legendary paladin from the distant empire of Tarlokium, spending his days fighting monsters and villains. When she was younger, Tyre believed everything he said. Now that she is 4, however, some things no longer make sense. If her father is such a powerful hero, why are they always poor? He works constantly, rarely comes home, and even misses holidays. At preschool, Tyre hears other children talking about visiting amusement parks, beaches, and other exciting places with their parents. That is when she realizes she and her father have never done anything like that together. Still, Tyre never complains. The residents of Gold Villa care deeply for her, and despite having no official registration, a kind preschool director allows her to attend school. Tyre is also unusually bright and has already taught herself how to read, but no one matters to her more than her father. He always promises that someday they will return to his hometown, live in a large house, eat plenty of delicious food, and smile every day. Tyre believes him completely. So while waiting, she draws a picture of them together and asks her daddy to come home. Then everything changes. One of the residents suddenly rushes inside carrying a document. The adults read it and immediately become horrified. They quickly leave, accidentally forgetting the paper behind. Curious, Tyre picks it up. It is a public notice concerning an unclaimed deceased man. Then she sees the name, Kim Young-soo, male, deceased. Tyre freezes. Her father cannot be dead. He promised he would come back. But Tyre knows what the word deceased means, and for the first time, fear begins replacing hope. Soon afterward, one of the residents returns with a box containing her father's belongings. Tyre remains strangely quiet, unable to accept what has happened. She looks at the drawing she made for him and remembers his promise to make her smile every day. So why did he leave her alone? That night, unable to sleep, Tyre opens the box herself. Inside are several belongings she immediately recognizes. Then she notices an ornate golden pendant with a large red jewel. Holding it against her chest, Tyre finally breaks down. She does not want toys or vacations. She only wants her daddy. As she sobs, the pendant suddenly begins glowing. Magic erupts through the room, and a mysterious voice asks why she is crying. Before Tyre can react, the jewel transforms into a tiny black dragon-like creature with red eyes and wings. Because it reminds her of Tanny Pang, Tyre begins calling it Black Pang. The creature quickly realizes that her father has died. Hearing those words aloud makes Tyre cry even harder. Black Pang gently comforts her before making an unbelievable offer. It can save her father, but there is a price. Tyre must abandon everything connected to her current life, her home, the people around her, this entire world. Tyre is only 4 and does not fully understand what that sacrifice means. Then Black Pang reveals something even more important. It can return her to the place where she was originally born, and there, her father is still alive. The moment Tyre hears that, nothing else matters. She tearfully agrees and begs Black Pang to save her daddy. Powerful magic immediately erupts around them as the transportation spell activates. Tyre is swept through a dazzling magical passage before the light finally fades. When she wakes, she finds herself inside a large white tent, still tearfully calling for her papa. Sitting beside her is a strange boy with black hair, red eyes, and dark horn-like features. At first, Tyre panics. Then she notices his horns. They look strangely familiar. Realizing he may actually be Black Pang in human form, Tyre excitedly asks whether he can transform into a person too. Once she calms down, she looks outside and immediately realizes they are no longer in Jongno-gu. Black Pang reminds her that they came here because she wanted to find her father. Then he confirms exactly where they are. Tarlokium, the hometown her father had always talked about. Tyre is amazed by the beautiful scenery and quickly remembers all the stories he told her about this place. But Black Pang soon reveals something important. He did not actually bring her father back to life. Instead, he took them 7 years into the past, 7 years before Tyre was even born. The explanation completely confuses her, but Black Pang makes one thing clear. In this time period, her father is still alive. That is all Tyre needs to hear. She immediately becomes excited about finally seeing him again. Unfortunately, there is another problem. Because they are now living in a time before Tyre's birth, her father will have no idea who she is. Tarlokium is also enormous, meaning there's no guarantee they will even find him. Tyre briefly tears up, but refuses to give up. Even if her father does not recognize her, she believes believes she can simply explain everything once they meet. She only cares that he is alive. Then, Taya remembers an important clue. Her father always claimed he was once the strongest holy knight of his generation, and according to his stories, holy knights gathered in the empire. Convinced this is their best lead, Tyre decides they should head toward the capital. Meanwhile, deep inside Briarwood Forest, an injured mercenary named Basto Ferrix is struggling with problems of his own. Covered in blood, he bitterly reflects on nearly 100 wasted days spent setting traps throughout the forest. The beasts he intended to hunt are already gone. Monsters emerging from mysterious mana stones have wiped them out. Even destroying the stones seems useless because new ones simply appear somewhere else, bringing even more monsters with them. After barely surviving another dangerous attack, Basto finally decides to abandon the forest and return to the capital. Just as he prepares to leave, however, one of his traps suddenly activates. Basto immediately grabs his massive hammer and heads toward the sound. Elsewhere, Tyre is already learning that reaching the capital will not be easy. She has barely traveled any distance before becoming completely exhausted. Watching birds fly overhead, she wishes she had wings so she could simply fly straight there. Naturally, she turns toward Black Pang for help, but he immediately refuses to carry her. Black Pang explains that traveling through dimensions and taking Tyre 7 years into the past completely drained his power. Hearing this, Tyre suddenly feels guilty. He had already sacrificed so much just to fulfill her wish. Wanting to thank him, she proudly offers him a massage she learned at preschool. Black Pang immediately refuses. He then explains that teleportation is also impossible because using it could leave behind magical traces that certain people might follow. Moments later, he transforms back into the red jeweled pendant. Tyre panics at first before realizing he is simply resting. She gently picks up the pendant and tells Black Pang to trust her. She will reach the capital herself. With renewed confidence, Tyre raises her fist and marches forward alone. Unfortunately, that confidence lasts only a few moments. Tyre suddenly steps directly into a hidden trap. A rope net snaps upward and launches her into the air. At the same time, Basto hears his trap activate and quickly approaches. Tyre hangs helplessly above the ground, already terrified. Then Basto appears beneath her, covered in blood, carrying a massive hammer, and looking far more dangerous than anyone Tyre expected to meet. The little girl immediately begins trembling and hiccuping. Convinced she has walked straight into serious danger, Tyre bursts into tears and desperately calls for Black Pang, but the pendant remains silent. And only moments after confidently declaring that she could handle the journey alone, Tyre tearfully realizes she may already be in trouble. Still trapped in the net, Tyre nervously insists that she is perfectly fine and even begs the terrifying stranger not to worry. Basto is completely baffled. The little girl is crying and hiccuping in fear, yet somehow she is the one trying to reassure him. Through her tears, Tyre explains that her father is nearby and she only needs to find him. Assuming she has simply lost sight of her guardian, Basto reaches forward to free her, but the movement terrifies Tyre even more and she immediately screams for Black Pang. Realizing how frightening he must look, Basto awkwardly tells her to cry louder so her father might hear. Tyre takes him seriously and begins desperately calling for her daddy. After freeing her, Basto tells her to return to her family. Tyre cautiously asks him if he's really letting her leave, then nervously admits that she thought he was a kidnapper. Basto freezes. Only then does he realize how terrifying he looks. His clothes are covered in dried monster blood, his hair is filthy, and he is carrying a massive hammer. He quickly denies being a kidnapper and explains that the trap was meant for a rabbit. Unfortunately, telling Tyre that he planned to eat the rabbit only confuses her more. Basto puts down his weapon and tells her to hurry back to her family. Tyre walks away, but after only a few steps, she suddenly collapses. Her legs are already covered in injuries from the journey. Seeing her condition, Basto realizes he cannot possibly send her off alone. He brings her somewhere safer and begins treating her wounds. By now, Tyre's fear has started fading. While Basto tends to her legs, she curiously asks whether rabbits taste good. When he claims most meat tastes the same, Tyre strongly disagrees, insisting that piggy, tau, and chick-chick all taste different. Her familiarity with so many foods makes Basto wonder wonder if she comes from a wealthy family. But something else bothers him more. Tyre had cried loud enough for anyone nearby to hear, yet no one came. So Basto finally asks where her father really is. Tyre hesitates before admitting that he is somewhere in the imperial capital. Basto is stunned. The capital is still about 5 days away. There is no way a 4-year-old could safely travel there alone. When he reminds her that she claimed her father was nearby, Tyre nervously explains that her kindergarten teacher taught her what to say if she was ever kidnapped. She was supposed to stay calm, cooperate, and look for a chance to escape. Bastil is speechless that a kindergarten would teach something so specific. Even so, one thing is obvious. Tyre is not a child accustomed to surviving alone. Unable to abandon her, Basto decides to take her to the imperial capital himself. Her eyes immediately light up. For the first time, she finally has someone who can help her reach her father. The arrangement works for Bastil too, since he was already heading there to report the mysterious mana stones. While they rest, he prepares a simple bowl of carrot soup. Tyre looks suspiciously at the carrots, but Basto reminds her that she needs strength if she wants to reach her daddy. Determined to grow strong, she forces herself to try it. To her surprise, the carrots are soft and sweet. She quickly finishes the bowl and happily accepts another. Then she notices strange writing carved into its side. Without thinking, Tyre reads it. "Daddy, I love you." A moment later, she freezes. The letters are not Korean. Then she realizes something even stranger. Basto has not been speaking Korean either, yet she has understood everything he said. Somehow, Tyre can already read and understand Tarlakium's language. She immediately suspects Black Pang's magic. Remembering how much power he exhausted bringing her into the past, Tyre decides that once he wakes up, he should eat with them and recover his strength. That night, she lies beneath the stars, imagining the moment she finally finds her father. She wants to introduce Basto and Black Pang to him and proudly explain how hard she worked just to reach him. 4 days later, Tyre and Basto finally arrive at the first imperial gate. She is now closer to her father than ever. But just as they prepare to enter, the guards stop them. Basto angrily demands an explanation. The official reveals that his mercenary identification number has been deleted. Without valid identification, he is forbidden from entering the capital. He is ordered to turn back. Tyre watches nervously from his arms. After everything she endured to reach this place, another obstacle now stands between her and her daddy. After being denied entry to the capital, Basto angrily retreats to the nearby Gate Inn. Furious that his mercenary identification was suddenly deleted, he immediately suspects a man named Cal Woben. The inn's landlady scolds him for causing a scene before noticing how dirty and exhausted Tyre looks. While she fusses over the little girl and cleans her up, the innkeeper confirms that Basto's identification really has been erased. Basto becomes even more convinced that Cal arranged everything. His identification had been perfectly valid only 2 weeks earlier. Worse, when Basto explains that he came to report one of the mana stones in Briarwood Forest, the officials reveal that someone has already claimed the achievement. The credit was given to the Deathhound Mercenary Corps. Basto is stunned. The officials even accuse him of chasing after the Deathhound's leader and trying to steal someone else's accomplishments. That is when Basto realizes what has happened. Someone has erased his identity and stolen credit for the dangerous work he nearly died completing. His anger immediately turned toward Cal. Basto remembers how Cal once acted like a trusted friend, promising to protect Van Anra and even Basto's family. Now, those promises feel like nothing but betrayal. His rage becomes so intense that the surrounding officials begin wondering whether he might attack them. But Tyre quietly reaches up and touches his face. She asks if he is okay. Her concern catches Basto completely off guard. To Tyre, his scarred face still looks frightening, but now he also looks strangely sad. Basto finally calms down and apologizes, explaining that reaching the capital may take longer than expected. Tyre simply tells him that it is okay. For now, Basto decides they need somewhere safe to stay, while he figures out what happened to his identification and finds another way inside. His frustration only grows when he notices the refugees gathered outside the capital. So many people have lost their homes because of the mana stones, yet the nobles inside seem to be doing almost nothing. The innkeeper notices Basto's mood and mentions his hometown, Van Anra Village. The name immediately catches Tyre's attention. At first, she hilariously mishears it as Banana Village, but when Basto repeats the correct name, something strange happens. Tyre suddenly recognizes it. She somehow knows that Van Anra is Basto's hometown. The realization shocked her because Basto never told her that. Then, memories of her father's old stories begin returning. Her father once said that he had around 20 incredibly powerful subordinates. Among them, the person he trusted most was someone Tyre only remembers as Mr. Hammer. Mr. Hammer had once been the vice captain of a mercenary group called the Death Hound. That group came from Van Anra village. Its leader was a man named Cal, and Cal constantly sent Mr. Hammer away to deal with dangerous mana stones. Tyre slowly looks toward Basto, the enormous hammer, the mercenary group, Van Anra, Cal. Everything begins connecting. She starts wondering if Basto is actually the Mr. Hammer from her father's stories. Then another memory surfaces. Mr. Hammer had a wife and daughter in Van Anra and had sworn to protect them. But one day, everything changed. During an event later remembered as the Day of Destruction, monsters that normally appeared only at night suddenly attacked in broad daylight. At the time, Mr. Hammer had been sent away to deal with another mana stone. The terrified villagers turned to Cal for protection. Instead, Cal told everyone to remain inside while he supposedly investigated the danger. Then he secretly fled. The villagers trusted him and waited for help that never came. Van Anra was completely overrun. By the time Mr. Hammer returned, the village had already been destroyed. His wife, his daughter, the people he had promised to protect, all of them were dead. The tragedy completely shattered him, and he eventually abandoned the Death Hound mercenary corps. Now, Tyre finally understands why Basto becomes so emotional whenever Van Anra is mentioned. Even more importantly, she remembers what happened next. After Mr. Hammer left the group, Cal bribed the Holy Knights and had his identification erased. Exactly what is happening to Basto now. At that point, Tyre becomes almost certain. Basto really is Mr. Hammer, but her father's story did not end there. Mr. Hammer eventually met the strongest man of that era. That man immediately recognized that he was both powerful and kind. So he helped Mr. Hammer obtain a new identification and invited him to come with him. Tyre suddenly realizes who that powerful man must have been. Her father. The connection fills her with excitement. If she can find her daddy quickly, he may not only recognize Basto someday, he may also be the person capable of saving him from Cal's betrayal. Tyre clenches her tiny fist with renewed determination. Tyre quickly realizes that if she wants to see her father, she somehow has to enter the imperial capital. The problem is that her father is already inside, while she and Basto are still trapped outside. Worse, Tyre believes finding her father could also solve Basto's identification problem, but she cannot help Basto until she reaches the very person she cannot get to. After worrying herself exhausted, Tyre eventually falls asleep. Basto quietly covers her with a blanket and begins thinking about what to do next. He considers getting a new mercenary identification or finding another way into the capital. But even if he cannot enter himself, Tyre still needs to reach her father. Because of that, Basto starts wondering if he should entrust her to someone reliable who can take her inside safely. While he remains lost in thought, Black Pang quietly emerges from the pendant. Seeing Tyre sleeping peacefully, he's relieved she managed to travel this far without anything worse happening. However, his strength still has not recovered from reversing time. Unable to stay out for long, Black Pang gently touches Tyre and asks her to wait a little longer before retreating back into the pendant. The next morning, Tyre awakes to find Basto gone. The landlady explains that he left early, then invites Tyre to accompany her grocery shopping. Tyre happily follows her into the crowded market outside the capital. Merchants shout prices while desperate refugees fill the streets. The landlady explains that even more mana stones have recently appeared, and the newest ones are much larger. Looking at the exhausted people around her, Tyre finally understands Bastille's frustration. While wealthy citizens remain protected inside the capital, countless others have been left struggling outside. Their shopping is suddenly interrupted by shouting. A furious man accuses a hooded woman of touching his wallet. The woman insists that she only bumped into him, but he refuses to listen and strikes her. Tyre is horrified. The situation feels strangely familiar. From what she hears, the woman has apparently been beaten like this before. That reminds Tyre of the kind woman from room 203 back home, who always treated her gently and even offered her to buy ice cream. Unable to stay silent, Tyre rushes forward and loudly declares that hidden people is wrong. The man angrily demands to know who he thinks she is, but nearby residents began confronting him as well. Then, the landlady steps forward. She reminds him that the alleys outside the checkpoint are filled with desperate people who have nowhere else to go. Whether he is wealthy or noble means very little there. If he continues causing trouble, she warns, that he could easily disappear in the night without anyone caring. Faced with the hostile crowd, the man finally backs down and leaves. Tyre is amazed. In her eyes, Grandma suddenly seems incredibly powerful. As they prepare to leave, however, the hooded stranger asks whether Tyre is staying in the room at the end of the second floor. The question immediately catches their attention. The landlady recognizes the stranger and demands to know why they have not returned to the inn for several days. Instead of answering politely, the stranger tells her to mind her own business. The landlady immediately scolds them and points out how badly bruised their face has become. After noticing the injuries in a mirror, the stranger reluctantly follows them back. Tyre begins feeling less certain about helping. Something about the stranger's sharp expression and rough attitude makes them seem increasingly frightening. Back at the inn, the landlady prepares food and orders the injured stranger to clean up. They respond with constant irritation, muttering curses while wiping their bruised face. Watching them, Tyre quietly decides this big sister might actually be very scary. Eventually, she gathers enough courage to tell the stranger that they are being mean. Then she directly asks whether they really stole the man's wallet. Trying to sound threatening, Tyre even warns that a tiger might come and take away people who behave badly. But instead of being frightened, the stranger becomes furious for an entirely different reason. They demand to know who Tyre keeps calling Big Sister. Tyre freezes. The stranger angrily explains that everyone keeps making the same mistake because of his appearance. He is not a woman at all. He is a boy. She quickly corrects herself and wonders if she should call him Big Brother instead. She admits that she has never seen a boy who looked so much like a girl. Around that time, Basto returns to the inn. The young man then admits that he really did take the wallet from the man at the market. However, he insists it was originally his. The man had promised to help him recruit members for a mercenary corps, took his payments, and then tried to run away. The moment Tyre hears the words mercenary corps, her attention sharpens. The young man explains that someone like him cannot simply become a knight, so hunting monsters as a mercenary is his best way to earn money. More importantly, forming a proper mercenary corps could provide the identification needed to enter the capital. Tyre immediately sees an opportunity. If they form one themselves, Basto could get a new identification. Excited, she suggested that they should all become a mercenary team together. The young man stares at her in disbelief. He picks her up and bluntly explains that he needs experienced fighters, not a 4-year-old child. Then he reveals something else. He's actually an assassin. Tyre has no idea what that means. When he explains again, she refuses to be discouraged and proudly insists that she has Black Ping, the legendary creature sleeping inside her pendant. The assassin is completely unimpressed, so Tyre points toward Basto instead and proudly introduces him as Mr. Hammer. Basto immediately corrects her and gives his real name, Basto Ferrix. He then asks whether the young man is truly serious about creating a mercenary corps. Basto explains that although his identification was erased, he has spent years working as a mercenary and is strong enough to handle a small mana stone by himself. He even claims that he once conquered Briarwood's small mana stone alone. That immediately catches the assassin's attention. He remembers seeing the Death Hound mercenary corps returning through the first gate while loudly celebrating their supposed victory over that exact mana stone. The group seemed unusually close with the knights guarding the capital. Since only one small mana stone had appeared in Briarwood, Bastil's claim cannot possibly match their official story. The assassin warns him not to lie, but Tyre immediately jumps to Basto's defense. She insists that the Death Hound stole Mr. Hammer's achievement and even caused his identification to disappear. Basto does not care whether the young man believes him. He only needs a new identification so he can enter the capital and complete his promise to take Tyre to her father. The assassin studies them more carefully. Basto's story suddenly sounds believable. Mercenaries betraying each other over money is hardly unusual, and after spending nearly 2 months searching for reliable companions, the assassin has already been betrayed once himself. Compared to the people he has dealt with, Basto and Tyre somehow seem strangely trustworthy. Eventually, he makes a decision. He introduces himself as Bale Theodore. Bale warns Basto that if he cannot work harder than an ordinary mercenary, he will abandon him immediately. Basto calmly accepts and tells Bale to make sure he is not the one who becomes a burden. Just like that, the ridiculous idea begins turning into a real mercenary corps. The next day, the newly formed group heads toward a mana stone. Tyre excitedly walks between Basto and Bale, already convinced they make an unbeatable team. Basto is incredibly strong. Bale claims to be a powerful powerful assassin. Blackpink is practically a legendary creature, and as far as Tyre is concerned, she is powerful too. After all, she came first in races at kindergarten and was excellent at hide-and-seek, tag, and cops and robbers, so naturally she announces that she will help fight the monsters. Basto immediately tells her no. Tyre freezes. Until now, she genuinely believed she would be fighting alongside them. Basto explains that real monsters are nothing like children's games and asks what frightens her most. Tyre nervously answers that she is afraid of a Tyrannosaurus. Basto has no idea what that is, but warns her that the creatures near Mana Stones are far more terrifying. Tyre barely has time to process his warning. A violent explosion suddenly erupts nearby. Fire, debris, and shockwaves tear through the area. Tyre immediately screams for Basto and Bale. For the first time, the danger surrounding Mana Stones becomes terrifyingly real. Still shaken by the monsters, Tyre finally understands that real danger is nothing like the game she imagined. Soon afterward, the group meets an elderly diviner named Nordics Omen. Basto tells Tyre that she must stay with Nordics while he and Bale handle the Mana Stone mission. Nordics promises to watch over her, while Basto says they should return before daybreak. Feeling guilty for treating everything so casually, Tyre remembers her father warning that monsters come in many forms and attack unpredictably. Determined not to become a burden, she promises to wait quietly. Bale immediately teases her and tells her not to start crying. Tyre becomes offended and insists that she is not a little kid. When Bale reminds her how badly she cried after meeting Basto, Tyre argues that she is a child, not a baby. Bale remains completely unimpressed. After a final goodbye, Basto and Bale leave for the mission. On the way, Bale admits that Tyre's strange behavior makes him wonder if she comes from a noble family. Basto doubts it. No noble family would leave a 4-year-old alone in a monster-filled forest. Even her name sounds unusual to them, since Tyre introduced herself using names neither man recognizes. Eventually, they arrive at Tenebrum Cave, an old storage facility now infested with monsters and mana stones. As they move deeper inside, Bale reveals that he already looked into Basto's past. He knows Basto lost his family in Van Anra village and once served as vice captain of the Death Hound mercenaries. That alone convinces Bale that partnering with someone this capable could be extremely useful. Their original plan is simple: destroy the small mana stone closest to the entrance and leave before the cave becomes too dangerous. But before they can begin, enormous black-purple cracks suddenly spread across the walls. Both men immediately realize something is wrong. A small mana stone should never create a disturbance this large. Then, multiple medium-sized mana stones begin emerging throughout the cave. Their simple mission instantly turns into something far more dangerous. As monstrous energy pours from the cracks, a massive creature begins appearing behind them. Bale takes one look at the situation and shouts for Basto to run. Back at the camp, Tyre anxiously waits beside Nordics while clutching her backpack. Her thoughts remain fixed on Basto and Bale. Hoping for comfort, she takes out Blackpang's pendant and quietly asks him to wake up. But before anything can happen, the ground suddenly begins shaking. A massive explosion erupts near the cave, sending flames and debris into the sky. Tyre freezes. That explosion is far too large for a normal small mana stone mission. She immediately realizes Basto and Bale are still somewhere inside the disaster. Then, another eruption tears through the area. Moments later, flames begin spreading toward the camp. Nordics quickly pulls Tyre close. A fire-covered monster suddenly bursts from the burning forest and charges toward them. Nordics immediately steps forward to protect her and orders Tyre to run. Terrified, she forces herself to obey. But while running through the forest, Tyre cannot stop imagining the worst. Basto could die. Bale could die. Even Grandpa Nordics could disappear. The thoughts drag her back to the day she lost her father. Once again, everyone she cares about might be taken away from her. Tyre's fear quickly turns into panic. She trips and crashes to the ground. Feeling completely helpless, she begins crying and wondering why she can never protect anyone. Then, Tyre clasps her hands together and desperately prays. Green energy begins gathering around her hands. The mysterious power grows stronger until it takes the shape of a spectral skull. Basto and Bale are already fighting for their lives when the next phase begins. Bale struggles to hold the creatures back at close range, while Basto smashes through them with his massive hammer. But even Basto is badly injured, blood pouring from his shoulder as he realizes something is terribly wrong. When he inspected the area earlier, there were only small mana stones. Now, several medium medium-sized stones have somehow appeared. That sudden change has filled the entire zone with far more monsters than either of them expected. Bale soon realizes that the two of them may not survive. Basto knocks away the monster threatening him. Despite his injuries, Basto refuses to let Bale give up. Then, something strange happens. The monsters around them suddenly begin collapsing. Skeletal figures rise and start attacking the creatures instead. Within moments, the undead tear through enemies that had nearly killed Basto and Bale. Both men are stunned. Basto immediately demands to know whether Bale secretly knows magic. Bale angrily denies it. Looking closer, he realizes the skeletons are unmistakably creatures of darkness, necromancy, a legendary dark attribute magic almost unheard of in this era. Neither man understands who could have summoned them. Then they sense magic deeper in the forest. Following it, they discover something unbelievable. Tyre is standing among the skeletons. The little girl is sobbing uncontrollably, clutching one of the skulls while calling for Basto and Bale. The moment she sees them alive, she breaks down in relief. She had truly believed everyone was going to die. Even more strangely, the skeletons seem to comfort her. Tyre speaks to them naturally, as though she can understand exactly what they're saying. She even explains that they told her Grandpa Nordics is still alive. Moments later, a skeletal hand rises from the ground. Tyre happily recognizes the signal. Nordics soon returns, exhausted and bloodstained, but alive. Tyre immediately celebrates, explaining that her bone friends had already told her he was coming. According to her, the skeletons can sense what is happening underground. They also claim that the remaining monsters have already been defeated. Nordics checks on Basto and Bale before turning toward Tyre with growing disbelief. He asks whether the undead creatures were really summoned by her. Basto admits that everything points to Tyre. She is the only one who can understand them, and they appeared immediately after she desperately prayed for everyone to survive. Then, Tyre remembers why they came in the first place. She excitedly announces that her bone friends found the monster cores needed for the mercenary examination. When the group returns to the area, they discover a huge pile of colorful cores already waiting for them. Even more shocking, the rifts and mana stones are gone. The skeletons did not merely rescue them, they completed the entire siege. While Tyre happily gathers the cores, Nordics begins putting everything together. He concludes that Tyre must have been born with an enormous amount of mana. Her ability simply awakened before she even understood what was happening. Tyre asks whether she really has some kind of power. Nordics explains that special abilities usually awaken during a person's teenage years. Tyre is only 4. For someone her age to manifest magic this powerful is almost unheard of. Bale immediately becomes excited. He tells Tyre that she may already be incredibly strong, possibly strong enough to become one of the greatest people around. That immediately reminds Tyre of her father. Her daddy always proudly called himself the strongest. Now Tyre begins wondering if she might actually be strong like him too. The idea fills her with excitement. The skeleton beside her can only stare. Basto, Bale, and Nordics are still trying to understand Tyre's sudden awakening. Tyre innocently explains that her father is incredibly strong and was supposedly the strongest person in the world. Then she adds that he is a holy knight. That immediately makes the adults more cautious. In this world, holy knights awaken holy power, while mages use mana. The two abilities are normally separate. So if Tyre truly is the daughter of a powerful holy knight, the fact that she awakened overwhelming mana at only 4 years old is extremely unusual. Bale warns that children who awaken an opposite power to their parents are sometimes surrounded by dangerous superstitions. According to old beliefs, they can be treated as children who bring disaster. Then another possibility comes to mind. If Tyre's father really is the strongest holy knight, he may belong to the famous Lumian ducal family, a prestigious bloodline known for producing powerful holy knights. That possibility makes everyone uneasy. Tyre, however, simply explains that she used to live alone with her father in a modest home. Their life was not luxurious, but she was happy because having her daddy was enough. Then he disappeared, leaving Tyre alone with only Blackpang. Bale also notices that the skeleton beside Tyre does not seem like a temporary summon. It may actually be permanently connected to her. That makes her awakening even stranger. Despite all of this, Tyre remains focused on one thing. Once they pass the mercenary exam, she can finally enter the capital and find her father. She casually admits that her daddy probably will not recognize her. Naturally, everyone becomes confused. Tyre tries to explain that Black Pang sent her backward through time, meaning her father is currently living in a period before she was born. Unfortunately, her explanation only creates an even darker misunderstanding. The adults think someone deliberately erased Tyre from her father's memories. Combined with her unusual power and possible connection to the Lumion family, they began imagining the worst. Maybe her father discovered she possessed mana and secretly raised her away from the family. Maybe the Lumion family eventually found them. And maybe someone erased Tyre from her father's memories before abandoning her in the forest. Tyre has absolutely no idea that they have misunderstood everything. Bale becomes furious at the thought of anyone treating a child that way. Basto, however, decides they cannot approach the Lumion family carelessly until they know the truth. For now, Tyre's identity should remain hidden. Then another problem appears. Bale realizes there's no specific rule banning a 4-year-old from joining a mercenary corps, but that is only because nobody has ever tried registering one. Tyre cannot officially become a mercenary. She is devastated. Joining the group was supposed to be her way inside the capital, but Basto reminds her that she saved all of their lives, so they will find another way. Bale also gives her an important warning. From now on, Tyre must never reveal her powers publicly. Her ability is far too rare, and dangerous people might try to exploit her. That immediately frightens Tyre. She cannot afford to get into trouble before finding her daddy, so the group begins thinking about how to hide her identity. Tyre briefly wonders if they should simply put her inside a bag, then quickly changes her mind when Bale seems willing to consider it. Instead, she decides she needs to look intimidating. She remembers how frightening the Gate Inn landlady looked when she chased away the violent man at the market. If scary people are left alone, then maybe Tyre just needs to look scary too. Suddenly, she announces that she has a brilliant idea. A few days later, the group returns to the first Imperial Gate. This time, Basto carries a tiny hooded figure in his arms, while Bale and Nordics follow behind. Their plan is ridiculous. Instead of admitting Tyre is a 4-year-old child, they disguise her identity completely. Hidden beneath a dark hood and carrying Nordics' staff, Tyre is presented as the mysterious leader of their newly formed mercenary corps. Despite her tiny size, she does everything possible to look powerful and intimidating. At the mercenary registration hall, the officials open the group's bag and freeze. Inside is a huge pile of monster cores, including several from intermediate-grade creatures. Basto looks believable enough as a fighter, but Bale, Nordics, and the tiny hooded figure immediately make the officials suspicious. They begin wondering whether the cores were stolen. Before the questioning goes further, Tyre steps forward dramatically with her staff. She proudly introduces herself as a great archmage and necromancer. The officials stare in confusion. Then the ground cracks. A glowing skeleton bursts through the floor, throwing the entire hall into panic. Tyre calmly orders it behind her. The undead creature obeys. At that moment, everyone realizes the tiny child is controlling it. When the officials demand her name, Basto immediately scolds them for speaking so disrespectfully to his master. Tyre stops him and puts their rehearsed plan into action. Using the intimidating tone Bale taught her, she questions why they are so desperate to know her identity. The terrified officials immediately stop asking questions and agree to process their registration. Once they leave, Bale can barely believe their ridiculous plan actually worked. Even Basto praises Tyre for successfully fooling everyone. Nordics also asks to continue traveling with them, wanting to repay Tyre for saving his life. Then the group realizes they need an official name. Tyre immediately suggests Quail Squad. Bale is horrified. Fortunately, the registration is eventually recorded under King of the Dead instead. Their mercenary identification is successfully issued, with Tyre listed as a dark attribute mage. However, the official then asks for more personal information. Tyre becomes nervous, but Basto reassures her that she does not have to reveal anything. Because the Empire heavily depends on mercenaries to fight the Mana Stone crisis, the authorities cannot pressure them too much. So when the official tries asking again, Tyre leans into her King of the Dead persona. A skeleton rises beside her, and the terrified man immediately backs down. But then he reveals a much bigger problem. There are direct orders preventing Basto Ferrix from receiving a new mercenary identification. According to the official, the restriction came from Cal Woban, leader of the Death Hound's mercenaries. Cal accused Basto of extortion, theft, and other crimes before fleeing. Basto is stunned. Those are the exact crimes Cal himself committed. The truth truth becomes clear. Cal did not just steal Basto's achievements, he framed Basto for his own crimes and used his influence to destroy his reputation. Basto finally understands why his identification disappeared. Even Bale becomes furious and demands to know how much Cal must have paid to make the authorities believe such obvious lies. The officials refuse to answer, and their silence makes one thing increasingly suspicious. Cal Wobin may have powerful protection inside the capital. Tyre suddenly realizes the entire situation may come down to one thing: a bribe. In her mind, bribery is simple. Give someone enough money and they do what you want. So she immediately concludes that Carl must have paid someone powerful to keep pushing Basto around. The official reluctantly admits that Basto's situation is already known, but the problem is that whoever is protecting Carl is not easy to oppose. He points toward the newly appointed commander chosen by the emperor himself. According to rumors among the knights, the man constantly interferes with different units and treats other people's lives as if they mean nothing. The official cannot confirm every detail, but if even new mercenary registrations are being blocked, then a huge amount of money must have changed hands. Basto falls silent. Once again, everything comes back to money. Then he reveals something even worse. Carl had already taken all of the compensation money tied to his family. Becoming a mercenary was the only path Basto had left to pursue revenge, and now even that path is being taken from him. Bale suggests that Basto head toward the capital first, while he finds another way to follow. But before anyone can decide, Tyre suddenly asks one important question: how much money did Carl pay? The official nervously admits he does not know the exact amount, only that rumors mention an entire chest filled with money. Tyre immediately makes up her mind. If Carl won with one chest, she will simply pay more. She opens her pink backpack. Inside is a ridiculous amount of jewelry, gemstones, necklaces, and other treasures given to her earlier by the Bone Friends. Tyre calls the skeletons again, and they immediately bring even more valuables. Basto, Bale, and Nordics can only stare. Tyre proudly declares that the great mage overlord will offer a greater price, and unlike Carl, she refuses to sell her conscience cheaply. About an hour later, the officials return with Basto's newly issued mercenary identification. Basto stares at it in disbelief. After everything Carl did to destroy his career, Tyre somehow gave him his path back. Now only one thing remains. Their mercenary group needs a name. Tyre immediately thinks of Quail Class again, but remembers everyone's reaction and desperately searches for something more impressive. Then she notices the name Travaga written on a nearby ranking board. After secretly rearranging the letters in her head, she proudly announces their new name, Agabert. When everyone asks where she got it, Tyre confidently claims she simply invented it. The official accepts the name, and just like that, Agabert becomes an officially registered mercenary group. More importantly, they can finally continue toward the imperial capital. Basto pulls Tyre close and sincerely thanks her. She becomes emotional too. Her father had always protected her, and now, for once, Tyre feels like she was able to protect someone else. She is proud that she could repay even a little of the kindness Basto showed her. Bale quickly reminds her that she is still supposed to act like the terrifying overlord until they leave. Tyre immediately straightens up and returns to character. Basto suggests celebrating with something delicious once they return to the inn. Tyre happily agrees. Then Basto makes her another promise. No matter what happens, he will make sure they find her father. Elsewhere, news of the strange rookie group begins spreading. A red-haired mercenary rushes into another gathering and excitedly announces that a newly registered team has successfully passed through the gate. The others barely react. Rookie groups appear all the time. One of them even questions why she bothered stealing the commander's registration record over something so ordinary. But one man does not dismiss it. He quietly studies the document. His name is Gestian Baronio, commander of the mercenary group Trevaga. Inside the Trevaga mercenary corps, Livia bursts in with another so-called major scoop. Victor dismisses her at first, but Gestian quickly confirms that this time the news really is unusual. A newly formed mercenary group has appeared, led by someone believed to be a powerful darkness mage. That alone is shocking. Mages are already incredibly rare in Tarlakium, and this one supposedly used necromancy to summon skeletons directly inside the registration office. Since necromancy was thought to exist mostly in theory, the report immediately gets everyone's attention. Alaric confirms that the information came through the Paladin's communication network, making it far more credible than ordinary rumors. The new group is called Agavert. Gessian studies the registration details and notices several unfamiliar names. Then Then he sees Basto Perix. He immediately recognizes him as the former vice leader of the Death Hounds. That changes everything. If someone like Basto has joined this mysterious group, then Agavert is clearly not ordinary. But one detail interests Justian even more. The necromancer's real name is missing. Instead of being suspicious, Justian laughs. To him, hiding his identity, disguising himself as a tiny child, and calling himself the king of the dead makes this unknown mage seem either completely eccentric or absurdly confident. Before the discussion can continue, another mercenary leader known as the Grim Reaper openly mocks Justian. He reminds him that being ranked first does not mean he will stay there forever. Justian simply laughs and asks whether the man really thinks he can take first place from him. When the Grim Reaper becomes furious, Justian calmly explains that rankings are not won through brute force alone. Then he casually warns that if the man keeps irritating him, he might make sure there are no mana stones left for him to claim. The room immediately falls tense. Elsewhere, Tyre is completely unaware that Agavert is already attracting attention. Back at the Gateway Inn, she happily eats cookies while Bale teases her by calling her the mighty necromancer king. Tyre becomes embarrassed and tells him to stop using the title when they are alone, but secretly, she admits that she likes it. To her, cool titles make powerful people sound even more impressive, so becoming necromancer king Tyre does not seem so bad. Soon afterward, Basto and Nordics return carrying something large. It is Agavert's new mercenary cape. Tyre's eyes immediately light up. The cape has a cute pink emblem that looks exactly like Tanapung. Bale, however, is horrified. He cannot believe their supposedly fearsome mercenary corps now has a bright pink creature as its symbol. Tyre proudly explains that she and Nordics designed it together. That only makes Bale more determined to erase it. He reaches for ink, and Tyre immediately attacks him to protect her precious emblem. Their argument quickly turns chaotic. The ink spills everywhere, and Bale suddenly cuts his hand during the struggle. Then something unexpected happens. A strange black creature connected to Tyre suddenly appears. It remembers Tyre's earlier orders and asks whether Bale is the person she wanted punished. Everyone freezes when they notice the blood on Bale's hand. Tyre immediately panics as Black Pang appears in full view. Bale stares at her in disbelief and asks whether she actually ordered her summon to attack him. Tyre desperately denies it. Basto quickly steps in, reminding Bale that Tyre only recently awakened her power and probably cannot control Black Pang perfectly yet. He also warns Bale not to provoke him further because if the situation turns into a real fight, Bale may not win. Black Pang looks almost amused, which only makes Bale more irritated. Before things escalate, Tyre grabs Bale and pulls Black Pang away as well. She declares that both of them are going to the Room of Truth. Upstairs, Tyre falls back on the rules she learned in kindergarten. If someone hurts another person, they have to reflect, apologize, and accept responsibility. So she firmly tells Black Pang that hurting Bale on purpose would be very bad. To her surprise, Black Pang suddenly drops to the floor. Tyre assumes he feels guilty. Instead, he calmly claims that his heart was shocked. Tyre is completely baffled. When she tells him to apologize properly, Black Pang points out that Tyre also hit and bit Bale during the argument. That immediately stops her. Embarrassed, Tyre admits that she did not mean to hurt him either. Even so, she gently thanks Black Pang for everything he has already done, especially using so much strength to bring her into the past. Black Pang becomes unusually gloomy, calling himself pathetic for sleeping so long and then causing trouble the moment he woke up. Tyre immediately disagrees. She reminds him that dimensional magic exhausted him and that he simply needed time to recover. Then Black Pang gives her an important warning. If Tyre is going to continue pretending to be the Necromancer King, she needs to keep her true identity hidden. He plans to do the same. To everyone else, he can simply appear to be an ordinary summoned beast. Tyre realizes that Black Pang may also have secrets he wants protected, so she suggests that they promise to protect each other. Black Pang agrees. Then he finally reveals something deeply personal. His true name is Lucarion. Tyre softly repeats it, realizing he has trusted her with something important. Overcome with gratitude, she suddenly hugs him. She thanks Lucarion for everything he has done and promises that once she finds her father, she will repay him properly. Lucarion is completely caught off guard by the affection. When Tyre finally pulls away, she cheerfully decides that in public, she will still call him Black Pang. Lucarion clearly hates the nickname, but reluctantly accepts it. After Tyre leaves, Lucarion quietly reflects on the mysterious power surrounding Tyre. Tyre. He begins to suspect that the strange force connected to his awakening may have come from Tyre herself. That possibility makes her even more mysterious. Downstairs, Tyre finds Bale and proudly announces that Blackpang apologized. Bale looks around confused because Blackpang is nowhere in sight. Tyre then apologizes for biting him as well. Bale jokingly warns her never to do it again, and Tyre takes the warning so seriously that everyone starts laughing. The next morning, the group prepares to leave. Basto reminds Tyre that the moment they step outside, she has to become the mysterious necromancer king. Tyre pulls on her hood and immediately returns to character. With Agarart officially registered, the group finally heads deeper into Tarlakium. Tyre is surprised by the city. Instead of towering buildings, she finds low structures, crowded streets, and a much older-looking world than she imagined. Basto explains that they first need to visit the Papalosa weapons district so he can repair his damaged hammer. He considers renting a carriage, but decides they need to save money after everything they already spent. As they continue walking, Tyre notices how dry and barren the surrounding land looks and wonders if the mana stones caused it. The journey quickly exhausts her. Even Bale complains about the distance, while Nordics somehow keeps going without much trouble. Tyre tries to maintain her proud necromancer king act, but eventually becomes too sleepy. Basto notices and gently lifts her into his arms. Within moments, Tyre falls asleep against him. In her dream, she returns to a peaceful memory with her father. They are back inside their small home, spending an ordinary day together. Her father sits beside her and gently fixes her hair. For a moment, everything feels warm again. Then the memory changes. Ty remembers that their peaceful life ended because of an accident. The word echoes through her mind as the dream begins to darken. Inside Tyre's dream, her father admits that he still does not understand what is happening to them. Even so, he reassures her that if they keep searching, they will eventually find a way home. Tyre immediately believes him. To her father has always been gentle, patient, and strong enough to smile even when he was afraid. Now, looking back, Tyre realizes how terrifying it must have been for him to wake up in a completely unfamiliar world with no answers. Everything she knows about Tarlacham came from the things he patiently taught her, and even though he always comforted her, he must have carried his own fear alone. Still asleep, Tyre quietly wishes he could hold on a little longer. This time, she promises herself that she will protect him. Sometime later, the group reaches Pearl City, a large port city on the outskirts of the capital. Nordics remarks that the place has barely changed, while Bale complains that the older man somehow still has more stamina than he does. Their priority is finding somewhere to stay before continuing toward the Papalosa Armory District, where Basto hopes to repair his hammer. Nordics recommends the Red Gauntlet Inn, a place popular with mercenaries and useful for gathering information. Unfortunately, the inn is full. They are told that one room should become available later, so the group waits outside with Tyre still sleeping in Basto's arms. Bale jokingly complains that the mighty necromancer king is somehow sleeping through everything. Then, someone nearby catches his attention. A powerful mercenary named Faison appears. Bale immediately recognizes him as a member of Travaga. Even standing casually, Faison gives off an overwhelming presence. Bale quickly realizes that Travaga's reputation is not exaggerated. For a moment, Faison's attention shifts toward Basto and the others, almost as if he senses something unusual among them. Then, someone reminds him that his ship is leaving soon. Faison turns away, casually saying he will deal with it later. Only after he leaves does the tension finally ease. Soon afterward, a room becomes available. While the adults continue discussing Travaga and its strange reputation, Tyre drifts through another peaceful dream of playing with her father. When she wakes, Nordics explains that they are now staying in Pearl City. Tyre immediately rushes to the window, amazed by the enormous ocean and ships filling the harbor below. Basto then tells her that he, Bale, and Nordics need to go gather information. Tyre happily promises to remain in the room. Their main goal is simple: find anyone who knows about the Luminen family or Kim Young-soo. Downstairs, the three men enter the crowded dining hall and begin asking questions. Most mercenaries have never even heard of Kim Young-soo. One man recognizes Basto and starts mocking him loudly. Bale quickly loses patience and tells him to stop shouting if he has nothing useful to say. The argument nearly turns into a fight before the mercenary finally admits that he does know something about the Luminen family. Meanwhile, upstairs, Tyre continues watching Pearl City from the window. Then she suddenly sees someone below who looks almost almost exactly like him. Her eyes widen. Without hesitation, Tyre bolts from the room and races downstairs. She pushes through the building and runs toward the harbor, becoming more convinced with every step. To Tyre, this is not someone who merely resembles her father. It is Dad. Meanwhile, Basto, Bale, and Nordics continue questioning people about the House of Luminen. They learn that the family is filled with some of the Empire's strongest holy knights. Its head, Valentis Luminen, has 4 sons. Edmund serves as a tactical advisor. Leonardo commands an elite unit. Alexander leads the medical department. But almost nobody seems to know anything about the 4th son. That immediately catches Basto's attention. He begins wondering whether the mysterious youngest son could somehow be connected to Tyre. Tyre suddenly rushes through the crowded inn and disappears outside. She barely notices the people around her. All she can think about is reaching the man ahead. Tyre runs through the streets, bumping into strangers and nearly falling as she races toward the harbor. Then she finally sees him near the ships. Tyre cries out for her father. The man slowly turns. The moment she sees his face clearly, everything else seems to disappear. His eyes, his expression, even the warmth she remembers. It all feels painfully familiar. Tears immediately fill Tyre's eyes. After everything she endured, she believes she has finally found him. She runs toward the man without hesitation. But while Tyre sees her beloved father, the stranger only looks down in confusion at the tiny child calling him Dad. And before Tyre can reach him, he disappears from sight. Tyre is left crying alone near the harbor. Back at the inn, the discussion about the Luminen family grows more complicated. The mercenary explains that Valentis Luminen is almost legendary among holy knights. Someone briefly suggested that Valentis himself might have secretly fathered another child, but that theory seems unlikely. Valentis is famously devoted to his wife Eleonora, the powerful woman known as the Saintess of Risalde. Their marriage is considered one of the Empire's great love stories, and they already raised 4 sons together. Bale, however, refuses to completely trust appearances. Powerful noble families can look perfect in public while hiding far darker problems behind closed doors. Before they can investigate further, Nordics suddenly rushes back. Tyre is gone. Basto and Bale immediately panic. Basto races outside while the others begin searching the surrounding streets. Eventually, a local woman tells them that a small child matching Tyre's description was seen heading toward the docks. Basto's expression changes instantly. He had promised to protect her, and now she is alone in an unfamiliar city. The 3 men sprint toward the harbor. Meanwhile, Tyre continues searching desperately for the man she believed was her father. By the time Basto reaches the docks, the area is strangely quiet. Then he spots something small on the ground, Tyre's cloak. His heart drops. Basto, Bale, and Nordics rush forward and find Tyre collapsed on the stone pavement near the waterfront. Lucarion warns Tyre that even if she finds her father, the man she remembers may no longer recognize her. For the first time, Tyre truly understands what Kamangi meant. Until now, she believed finding her father would fix everything. But if he has forgotten her, he may already be living a completely different life. That thought hurts even more because he once told Tyre that she was the most precious person in his world. When Tyre wakes, Basto, Bale, and Nordics are relieved, but she immediately breaks down, terrified that the peaceful life she remembers may be gone forever. Once she calms, the adults return to what they learned about the Luminen family. None of the 4 known sons appear to have a young child. Duke Valentis is old enough to be considered, but that theory makes little sense because he has remained publicly active for years. Then, Bale remembers Tyre's claim that her father's memories were erased. If that is true, the situation may be far more dangerous than they thought. The Luminen family is one of the Empire's strongest noble houses. Anyone capable of interfering with one of its members would need enormous influence or magical power. Nordics also warns that Tyre's claim about her father being the strongest holy knight may not be completely reliable, and Kim Young-soo is probably an alias. Still, Tyre knows too many strange details for her entire story to be false. For now, they decide to wait until she is calmer and ask for more clues. As Tyre rests, Bale raises another question. If they eventually find her father, what happens to Agabert? Before anyone can answer, Tyre slips into another terrifying dream. A battlefield appears. Purple poison tears through the area as someone screams for Livia to protect a young girl. People are wounded, monsters are everywhere, and Alaric is caught in the chaos. A badly injured mercenary orders Livia to take the girl and escape. Even though Livia is already poisoned, she carried the child through the ruined battlefield. The girl in her arms feels frighteningly cold. Nearby, another wounded man collapses and apologizes for failing to protect her. With his remaining strength, he wishes only for the girl to survive, remain beside the commander, and live happily. Livia forces herself to keep moving, but monsters surround the remaining survivors, and escape begins to seem impossible. Tyre's sudden jolts awake. The dream felt far too real. Then she remembers hearing Basto's name. Her father once told her that he had worked with Basto and others in this world. That makes Tyre wonder if what she saw was actually a memory from when she was still a baby. She also remembers her father saying they came to this world because of an accident. If that battlefield was connected to the accident, then something far more dangerous may have happened than she understood. One detail troubles her even more. Someone in the dream called her father Commander, but Tyre had always believed he was a holy knight. The pieces no longer fit together. She once thought finding her father would answer everything. Now she is not even sure who he truly was in this world. Lucarion quietly appears beside her and notices her tears. He asks whether the dream is why she has been so upset. Tyre looks at him in surprise. For the first time, she realizes Lucarion may be the only person who can help her understand what these memories actually mean.